Aurel, thank you for having us. Today we're going to talk for the New York auction that comes approximately 15 days. Legendary watches of the 20th century. What was the idea of that auction? Because it's a theme auction in a way.
It has a beautiful genesis. We planned about a year and a half ago that 2017 was going to be the year we're going to launch our New York auctions. Now, if you launch something, you don't just launch it sort of half-heartedly, you do it properly. In 2016, we were entrusted with the sale of Paul Newman's Paul Newman. And that gave us, of course, a lot of motivation, a great boost to really do it properly, but also the challenge, how do you fit that watch into a theme, into an auction? We then reduced the essence of that watch, I would say one key word, and that was icon. It's an iconic watch. Even without Paul Newman, is an iconic watch, and with Paul Newman, and thanks to Paul Newman, it became the uber iconic watch. So we started playing with the idea to make an iconic auction where we bring together 50 watches that have really been burnt in our memories, where my mother-in-law, who's not a watch collector, can say a Nautilus, a Royal Oak, a Tank, a Deep Sea, a Reverso, a this, a that, and we made a shopping list of what we think these watches are. Now, the great thing about this iconic theme is, like in cars, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be costly. It's not just a millionaire's game. In cars, the Fiat 500, the Fiat 500, the Volkswagen Beetle, they are the cars of the 20th century. Do you need millions to buy them? No. So we had real fun putting this together, and we approach it with a shopping list. So the result of our shopping spree is what you hold in your hands.
Great selection.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about 4 watches that I think, and I think you two, are important. The first one, we can't skip it. The Paul Newman, from Paul Newman. In short, why? Why is it such an icon?
To me personally, it's not a celebrity watch. It's not a Rolex worn by an actor. Let's go back to the 1970s and 80s. The Rolex Daytona wasn't what today the Rolex Daytona is. And Rolex sports watches weren't what Rolex sports watches are today. I think it changed a lot, if not radically, because of Paul Newman. In the 1980s, you would buy a steel Universal, Movado, Zenith, you name it, for the same or even for more than a steel 6239 Daytona. And there comes the most beautiful actor, the most charming, generous, talented, faithful, wonderful guy, and poses with his personal watch. He was never paid by Rolex to do that. And the Daytona is cool. From there, sports watches become cool. From there, watch collecting, sports watches, becomes cool. This is the Adam and Eve of an entire generation of watch collecting.
You have a Perpetual Calendar from Audemars Piguet, and we all know Perpetual Calendar and Audemars Piguet is something that goes very well together. A 5516. It's an important watch, or is it a very important watch?
I think it is very important, and very is underlined, bold, and italics. It's one of my personal favorites. I'm hugely passionate about this watch. I always loved this model, and it is much more interesting and much more historical than people may think. Perpetual calendars today are watches that are so common you can buy them at the airport in a duty-free shop. Back then, it was the most exclusive thing in the world. Let's go back to the 1940s. In 40, Patek Philippe starts making a wristwatch with a perpetual calendar, the first model ever made in series. 10 or so years later, Audemars strikes back with the first perpetual calendar showing the leap year, because the 1526 at Patek Philippe didn't have that. So this is the first perpetual calendar wristwatch model showing a leap year. Now, where Patek Philippe made comfortably north of 100 or 200 watches off these early perpetual calendars, AP made 5516 in only 9 examples, some with the moon at the top, some with the moon at the bottom. We know that the vast majority of these 5516s are today in the Audemars Piguet Museum. You want to secure one of these ultra beautiful, ultra handmade, historical APs. This is your last opportunity. I think this watch cannot be underestimated in terms of its beauty, craftsmanship, design, mechanical aspect, rarity. It's a blue chip.
It ticks all the boxes.
To me, yes.
Next one. Another icon.
The Grand Tank Cintrée, or Tank Americain, is probably as timeless as a Greek temple. It's a design that cannot be improved. It was already perfect 100 years ago. The tank was made in multiple sizes, mostly in yellow gold, rarely in other metals, and in platinum it's the most luxurious version. The combination of the largest size with the most prestigious case material from the first generation with a platinum bracelet makes this example here, in my view, the single most precious Cartier tank in the world. Go back to 1927, the eve of the Great Depression. When I Google Great Depression, I see pictures of people in New York on Fifth Avenue with cardboard panels saying, "I do any job for food." And there was Oscar Seabass going to Cartier, buying himself a platinum oversized tank with a platinum brickstone design bracelet. This is the ultimate Cartier tank.
Last but not least, we move to something completely different. End of the 20th century, and we have a duality from Dufour.
So when we put together our shopping list, we had to cover the entire 20th century. In general, we accept that sometime in the early 80s, we started the renaissance of watch collecting. We know that modern times have brought out amazing watches. We have to mention the independents, F.P. Journe, Richard Mille, Gröbel. But these are 21st century watches. The one whom we identified as Mr. Independent, Mr. I do it myself at home, is Philippe Dufour. Philippe Dufour is in fact nothing but a 1920s watchmaker living in the body of a late 20th century watchmaker, and in a market where robots, machines, computers dominate, and with him it's still done in the early 20th century style. We chose this watch for a number of reasons. First, it's to some the most iconic Dufour model. Certainly the simplicity is the best known, the Grand and Petit Sonnerie is more complicated, but it is everything the essence of Philippe Dufour watchmaking. It is the most discreet super watch you can think of.
Good luck for the 26th.
Thank you. Believe me, we are excited, we are nervous, and every day the tension rises. It's a very special moment for Phillips. It's a special moment for, I think, also the broader watch market in the US and even beyond that.
Thank you very much.
A pleasure. Thank you for having me.